The first stage of a breakup is always the hardest, which is finding someone to date in the first place.
You've been broken up with, I've been broken up with. We all have gone through breakups in our life. Today, Casually Explained is going to explain breakups to us in a way that's easily digestible, but more than likely will make your parents not let you listen to this at nighttime at full volume. Let's do this.
They say that the heart is a muscle, so in order for it to get stronger, you have to train it to failure. And while America is speedrunning that in real time, today we're talking about breakups. Breakups, also known in this economy as finding new roommates, is when you're in a serious romantic relationship with a partner and then say to yourself, I don't want to be with this person anymore. You then think, maybe a dog will fix this. When that doesn't work, you then think, maybe a kid will fix this. But I digress. I didn't mean to drag you into this. Conventionally, a breakup occurs in 5 stages, so I thought I'd go through each one step by step so you can see where and if you're on that timeline. Stage 1. The first stage of a breakup is always the hardest, which is finding someone to date in the first place. The reason why this stage is important is because the way that you get into a relationship in the first place can really determine your individual attitudes towards each other as it progresses. For example, when a girl gets asked out and she says yes, she's thinking, wow, what a cool guy, I'm so happy, my life's going to be so much better. But when a guy asks out a girl and she says yes, he's thinking, uh-oh, she must be an idiot. Stage 2, seeing red flags in the relationship. Now, if you're watching this and think you're in a good relationship right now, it might be a good idea to check for signs that it's heading south before it actually gets there. So I decided to browse r/relationship advice in order to become an expert on the topic so I can share some examples of more subtle red flags you might not pick up on and how you should respond. Let's say you've been dating your girlfriend for 5 years and you live together. One day she's at work and you walk into the living room and see a magazine open on the coffee table to a jewelry ad. You look closer and see a couple engagement rings that are circled and one in particular with love hearts around it. How should you respond? Exactly. She's obviously never mentioned it, but she's clearly cheating on you with her husband. So best to break up and tell her that you're moving on. Let's say you've been on a few dates with a girl and you feel you have great chemistry. While you're creeping her socials as usual, suddenly she texts you, hey, I miss you. Can we hang out again soon? Now this is of course a great sign, but you don't want to seem too needy. So set a timer for 1 hour so you can respond at exactly the right time. After that, a few minutes go by and then she sends you a message on Instagram. It's a picture of her in the hospital, kissing a bald guy on the cheek with the caption, me with my stepbrother. How should you respond? Shit! Exactly, I know Johnny sins when I see him. Best to wait the remaining 56 minutes, break up, and tell her that you're moving on. Let's say you're overseas from your partner and have been in a relationship as long as you can remember, but are currently having a big fight about the joint vision of your future. You want to pursue a more down-to-earth existence on your farm, selling hemp and cotton clothing you've grown yourself, but they're reaching their financial peak and want to experience the luxuries of life. You message them that you want to end the relationship, but they respond, to do what? To run your stupid little farm? I'm the one making all the money. How do you plan on being able to afford to do that without me subsidizing you? How should you respond? Exactly, you've already figured out a great way to keep labor costs down. Best to just declare independence and tell them you're moving on. Stage 3, the breakup. While breakups aren't fun for anyone, men in particular don't usually take rejection very well, whether it's from girls, election results, or especially art school. This is because if you're a girl and your female friend goes through a breakup, the game plan is clear. She'll text, we broke up, to the group chat, then you all get together immediately, have a few bottles of wine, talk some shit about their ex, tell your friend she deserves better, and then have a pillow fight or something. For guys, the game plan is much more simple. He'll text the group chat, just a heads up, me and Katie broke up. You then reply, damn, that fucking sucks, dude. You good? He'll then say, yeah, I'm all right. And your job is done. What else could you possibly do? Now, regardless of whether you're a guy or a girl, whenever you're about to break up with someone, it's likely you'll start second-guessing your intuition, and it would be worth it if you struggled to replace them. So you have to ask yourself the most important question to see if you should go through with it. Who's going to pay the other half of the rent? While boomers and Gen X often complain that if you live with someone and break up, they get half your net worth. This, of course, isn't a problem for Gen Z or millennials because half of a negative number is pure profit. The real pain, of course, is losing custody of the houseplants. Similarly, one of the worst situations to be in when you're going through a breakup is when you have kids. This is the worst case scenario because not only is someone breaking up with you, but you also have kids. At some point, you really have to start wondering how you keep fucking up over and over again. Stage 4, getting over it. Whenever you go through a breakup, the most important thing is to not wallow in your own misery. You should only do that if your ex finds someone new in 2 weeks and they're exactly the same as you but hotter. Now, one of the critical steps of getting over a breakup is thinking about how your own attitudes and behaviors contributed to the relationship falling apart and what you could do better next time. If you ask a girl what would prevent another bad breakup happening to them, they might say, I should be more attentive and affectionate, and maybe communicate my thoughts more openly instead of expecting my partner to know, and make sure I don't make them prioritize my feelings at the expense of theirs. To men, self-reflection is of course way too complicated, as we like to have simple, concrete steps rather than vague hypotheticals, which is why if you ask a guy what would prevent another bad breakup happening to them, the answer is a simple two-step process.
I should have fucked
Bench
a friend.
3 plates, Bugatti Chiron.
I should have had sex
After
with a friend.
stage 4, we of course have stage 4. Now, they say that one of the best ways to get over someone is to get under someone else.
Yeah.
But when you've just gone through a breakup, it's likely been a while since you've been dating.
No.
And you might think, well, I think I'm a 7, so that's what I'm looking for. And then someone else will say, I think you're a 5. Now, in the dating market, this is called a bid-ask spread, and is essential to establish right away so you can see approximately what type of person is in your league. This is why when I get back on Tinder after a breakup, the first thing I do is set the radius to maximum, but you can pick any size of girl you want. Now, if you've only recently started dating again, the first thing you'll notice is how the dating meta has completely changed. If you're a girl, the first thing you're going to be thinking is, what the fuck is a Riz? And if you're a guy, you're going to be asking yourself, why does every girl I match with keep sending me links to viruses? The good news is that even though you might still be hurt by your fallen relationship, through the experience you've likely grown a lot as a person, so at least you'll have learned from your mistakes and won't have to do it all again. Stage 5. Do it all again. From this point, you simply repeat the process until you accidentally have a child, or you run out of money, or you try a polyamorous relationship until they go exclusive and you're the third wheel, or you get back with your ex and make it work because you overestimated your other options, or you realize that you can't say you don't like broccoli if you've never tried it, so you add grinder to the rotation. Now, one of the worst feelings I've had going through a breakup was when they said, but are you sure? Do you really want to get rid of everything we've done together? I mean, maybe you could just keep me around and use me when you want to.
Do it.
First dates are very exciting, but also stressful for everyone involved. For guys, for girls, and for any nosy bystanders who can't mind their own business. And as one of those people, I wanted to create this as a bit of a primer for first dates, whether you've never been on a date before and want to know what to expect, or if you're a veteran of the dating scene and just want to figure out what's wrong with you. So of course, before you even go on a first date, you have to ask someone out. And there's a million ways to do that. In person, over the internet, that's pretty much it really. But you either get a yes or a no, and it's as simple as that. And the good news is that if you do get a yes, you're already ahead of the game because the other person is saying they like you, or at the very least you're passably better than a vacant time slot. Now, the first consideration is, of course, where you're going to go and what you're going to do. And in my opinion, you should really choose a date activity that reflects how well you know the other person. Like if you met by limp-wristedly flicking your index finger across a cracked iPhone, then there's nothing wrong with ice cream and a walk in the park because we all know you're there to see how they eat soft serve. On the other hand, if you've been platonic friends for 5 years hoping your next haircut is the one that will tip them over the edge, you better have a lot of alcohol planned because your current personality just isn't cutting it. So the most classic date idea is, of course, dinner and a movie, but unless you interpret that with multiple layers of euphemism, it's a bit cliche for a first date and a bit too reminiscent of its old school origin, which is getting married before you're 22, raising a family, and making God proud, which just isn't up to date with today's poor and sinful youth. I think your best bet is going with coffee, drinks, or a quick bite to eat, but it doesn't hurt to eventually try to expand your repertoire. I think it's a really smart idea to come up with fun activities that you can do together so you can focus on doing the activity instead of worrying about what to say. A few of my favorites include drunk paint night, drunk baking, drunk Lego, and drunk stand-up comedy. The common element being, of course, they're all things I do when I'm alone. Now, that brings us to the real nitty-gritty of a first date, which is how you're supposed to act. And you might have heard the old classic turn of phrase, just be yourself. And this is a terrible idea for a multiplicity of reasons, but what I think it really means and should be said more explicitly is that you shouldn't pretend to be something that you're not. So if they're like, oh, what do you do in your spare time? And you like to play video games, then say, I like to play video games. Don't make shit up to try to sound cool, and besides, how you talk about something is way more important than what you're talking about. Even if you're into something like coin collecting, you could be like, I like coin collecting. Did you know that just by holding one in my hand, I can tell you the year that any 10-cent coin was produced? And when they say, what, really? Why only 10-cent coins? You can say, because I only date dimes. And then you show them your YouTube channel. The old 1-2 works every time.
No, it doesn't.
Now, unrelated, at a certain point you reach a difficult moment, which is figuring out if the date is going well, and girls and guys have their own distinct problems in this department. And from asking girls about their experiences on dates, the most common thing that seems to happen is thinking either, wow, why isn't he making a move? Or, oh shit, he thinks this is a date. On the flip side, the most common thing for guys to think is, I don't have a clue what's going on, which actually explains just about everything. So if you do find yourself confused in the moment, you just have to triangulate those perspectives and Sigmund Freud yourself deep in their psyche to figure it out. And if that doesn't work, you can say you like them and see what happens. So very presumptuously, assuming the date went well, wherever you are, it's time to settle up the bill and leave. Now, in today's day and age, guys are often confused as to whether or not they should be paying or splitting the bill.
Men should
or
pay.
what. And really, the only person I know who said, well, he was great, but didn't pay for dinner, so that's a no, is my mum. So don't make a joke about that unless you pay for her meal. Sorry, Jen, you asked for this. But don't worry too much about it. If you're the one who asks them out, offer to pay. They might offer to split, and then it'll be awkward for a few sentences, but you guys will figure it out. Now, this is really the part where it gets interesting, because after you walk to the most proximal waypoint between both of your houses, you're going to stand there for about 5 seconds, glance down at your feet for a second, and say, yeah, so, and then you have to talk about your feelings. So what do? Do you set up a second date? Do you go for a kiss? Do you invite them to your place? Do you walk them home? Or do you kind of sit on the curb, talk for 2 hours, and then go home because you're
Invite them to your place, and if they're not down, then set up a second date.
both too scared to be emotionally vulnerable? I think at the very least you should leave saying you had fun and want to get together again, or get out of there and let them down softly with a text pretending it's you when it's really them. Now, I know what you're all thinking, casually explained. What do you think of people hooking up on a first date? And as long as you're not my neighbor and are both down with it, I couldn't care less. Nowadays, it seems like everyone is having sex before holding hands anyway. But with that said, while I'm not judging you for busting out the strap-on from day one, God certainly is. So, light a candle. Don't call them daddy. Call them father. Don't finish with hallelujah. Finish with a condom. Just the obvious, really. You'll be fine.
Say both. Make sure to comment, like, and or subscribe. It's your boy BlastphamousHD. Make sure to go check out Casually Explained Twisms.